For almost 2,000 years, an entire Roman city lay frozen at the exact moment it died. Its people are still there, caught mid-step, shielding their faces, reaching for one another, preserved not as skeletons, but as hollow human shapes pressed into volcanic ash. This is the story of how a single afternoon erased Pompeii from the map, and how the eruption that buried it also turned it into the most detailed snapshot of everyday life the ancient world ever left behind. In the year 79, Pompeii was a thriving town on the Bay of Naples, perhaps 11 to 20,000 people, though the records are thin and historians debate the true size. There were bakeries with bread still in the ovens, election slogans painted on the walls, brothels, bathhouses, and grand villas covered in brilliant frescoes. Above it all rose Mount Vesuvius, green with vineyards and orchards. And here is the first unsettling fact. Almost no one living in its shadow seems to have understood that the mountain was a volcano. It had not erupted in living memory. To the Romans, it was simply a hill where you grew good wine. There had been warnings if anyone had known how to read them. 17 years earlier, a violent earthquake had shattered much of the city, and Pompeii was still being rebuilt when the end came. In the days before the eruption, smaller tremors rattled the region, but earthquakes were so common around the bay that people barely reacted. Some ancient accounts say springs and wells ran dry. No one fled. Even the date is uncertain. For centuries, the eruption was fixed to the 24th of August, based on a copied letter from an eyewitness named Pliny the Younger. But the surviving manuscripts disagree with one another, and the archaeology tells a different story. Autumn fruits, heating braziers in use, heavier clothing, and a charcoal inscription that appears to date to mid-October. Many scholars now believe Vesuvius erupted in the autumn, not late summer. We cannot be completely sure. Whenever it began around midday. With a roar, Vesuvius tore open and launched a column of ash and pumice miles into the sky. Pliny the Younger, watching from across the bay, later wrote that the cloud rose like an umbrella pine, a tall trunk of smoke spreading into branches at the top. Volcanologists estimate that column climbed as high as 30 kilometers, and the event was so defining that this exact kind of eruption is still called Plinian today. Then the sky began to fall. For hours, pumice and ash rained down on Pompeii, piling up in the streets, burying doorways, and collapsing roofs under the weight. Some people ran for the harbor or the city gates. Others sheltered indoors, waiting for it to pass, a decision that for many proved fatal. The town went dark in the middle of the day. Across the bay, the eyewitness's uncle made a different choice. Pliny the Elder was a famous scholar and the commander of the Roman fleet. Seeing the cloud, he ordered ships launched, partly out of scientific curiosity, partly to rescue people trapped along the coast. He reached the shore near Stabiae, but became trapped by the conditions, and there he died. The exact cause is debated: toxic fumes, a weak heart, or the sheer chaos around him. His nephew survived to write it all down, and through him we have our only detailed eyewitness account of the disaster. The deadliest phase came later. After many hours, the towering column could no longer hold itself up and collapsed, sending avalanches of superheated gas, ash, and rock racing down the mountain at terrifying speed. These pyroclastic surges are what truly killed the cities. Herculaneum, closer to Vesuvius, was hit first and buried under some 20 meters of volcanic material, far deeper than Pompeii. For a long time, it was assumed most residents had escaped. Then, in the 1980s, archaeologists found hundreds of skeletons huddled in the stone boathouses along the ancient shoreline, where people had gathered hoping for rescue by sea. The heat in those surges was extraordinary. Studies suggest temperatures of several hundred degrees, enough to kill in an instant. One widely reported study even claimed to find vitrified brain tissue, flesh turned to glass, in a victim at Herculaneum, though that finding is genuinely debated. Whether the victims died from heat shock or suffocation is still argued by experts. Pompeii's turn came with a final surge the next morning. The most haunting part of Pompeii came much later. In 1863, an archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli noticed strange cavities in the hardened ash. The bodies had long since decayed, but the ash had set around them, leaving perfect human-shaped voids. By pouring liquid plaster into these hollows, he created casts of the victims in their final moments. A mother curled over her child, a man covering his mouth, even a dog still straining against its chain. They are not statues. They are the spaces where real people used to be. How many died, we will never know. Around 2,000 bodies have been recovered across both cities, but countless others may still lie buried, or may have escaped. The true toll is lost to us. What remains is a city frozen in time, rediscovered centuries later, that taught us more about ordinary Roman life than any palace or monument ever could, because it captured not the powerful, but everyone, on the worst day of their lives. If you want more forgotten history that sounds made up but isn't, subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.